Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the debut of Last Mark Standing right here on YouTube. Some of you may be familiar with the concept already from its days on the PWTR podcast, but if you are not familiar with Last Mark Standing, then there are a few things that you need to know before we get this show on the road. Unlike the other shows here on PWF Empire, Last Mark Standing is not just a conversation, it's actually a competition. Last Mark Standing is judged on 3 rounds of competition formatted in a roundtable debate style. Each round begins with a pro wrestling themed question, followed by the competitors engaging in an all-out, no-holds-barred war to determine who can effectively argue the best case in favor of their answer. Now, I do have to put emphasis on what I am about to say next. This is not a popularity contest. This is not a popularity contest. You do not win because you have the best answer. You win because you have the best argument. When the dust has settled and all of the final scores are all tallied up, the person with the most points has effectively vanquished all of their foes, and they will be deemed the last mark standing. So with all of that being said, hopefully you all have a better understanding of the concept now, and yeah, I guess there's nothing else to it but to do it. So let the games begin. We have 3 competitors fighting it out tonight for the right to call themselves the last mark standing. They are PWF Empire contributors Duke, Evan, and Justin. Are you guys ready?
Always.
Dude, I was born ready.
Okay.
Oh, hell yeah.
Alrighty then, so with Last Mark Standing tonight, it actually has a very special theme, the 2016 PWF Empire Year-End Awards. We won't be revealing all of the nominees, nor all of the categories in this video. We're just going to be picking out a few of the categories and having those serve as the separate rounds for Last Mark Standing, and that's what our competitors will be fighting over. The first among them is the question, in the year 2016, what was the feud of the year? Duke, what is your answer?
Okay, so it was really easy for me. The feud of the year, beyond all question, in a year that's full of a lot of bad feuds, had to be The Miz versus Daniel Bryan.
Okay, interesting pick there. Justin, what's your pick for feud of the year?
I actually picked a wrestling feud that actually took place and was an actual feud, and that is
already.
Yeah, because it's pretty obvious when you give me point blank range, I gotta hit it. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. I think of all the pure wrestling feuds, this is the most personal of them all. It felt like an actual wrestling feud, like a personal bout between 2 people. It wasn't just like 2 characters or just watching wrestling. It felt like an actual feud. So I have to give the nod to Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
And Evan, feud of the year.
I got a feud that's not just some regular feud. This is a feud that is a super feud, and I don't even know how I'm the only one saying this, but John Cena versus AJ Styles, a dream feud coming true in front of our eyes in 2016.
Okay, so now that we have all of our answers, let's fight it out.
Okay, so the problem with a dream feud right off the bat is that it's never as good as what you booked in your head. You know what I mean? Did anybody see the John Cena AJ Styles feud and say, oh yeah, that's just as good as what I saw it going to be? No, I think everybody kind of came out of it disappointed. And honestly, it's one of those things that we still haven't seen the end to, and I don't know if I care to see the end to anymore.
I find it kind of funny because a couple of their matches are argued for not only match of the year, but arguably it's 2 of the best matches that people have seen in a long time, and those are some of the comments that came out of the first couple of matches that happened between them. So I'm not really so sure if that disappointment is to the level that you think it might be. I mean, yeah, sure. Is there the ability to see a dream feud and say, yeah, I want 10 out of 10 every single time? Yeah, sure, we as humans can kind of do that. But I think, if anything, this is the one time where this is the exception to that rule. AJ Styles and John Cena put out 2 of the best matches in 2016, and people were marking out, going nuts, going crazy. I remember social media absolutely blowing up because these 2 guys were putting on such a good show. And they told the story, too. They actually gave you an element where John Cena looked like he was human for once in the ring. So I don't really see what you're saying there.
Speaking of storytelling, I was with you, Evan. I would say this is going to be feud of the year. like everyone else was. But then that first match at Money in the Bank happened, and then that finish happened, and it like blew the steam out of me. Where like AJ Styles had to have the club come and interfere and win for him, and they're telling this perfect story about Cena can't stay up with this AJ Styles kid, and yet the club helps him beat John Cena. It's like, well, that's inflated. Then you go throw Enzo and Cass into the feud randomly for no reason. Then you throw the match at SummerSlam was a good point, but then they kind of ruined the finale with that by having the triple threat match at No Mercy with Dean Ambrose. Like they kept screwing with it thematically when they wouldn't just let it play out and let it be a simple story, which it needed to be to play out the dream scenario. And speaking of dream scenario, Duke, yours is an absolute dream because Daniel Bryan there'll never be a payoff for it because Daniel Bryan will never hop in the ring.
I'm sorry, I get the payoff every single time The Miz has a match. Everything that he does is getting better and better because of Daniel Bryan. The Miz's career took a turn, and it is better than it was even when he had the WWE Championship with that IC belt and the fact that Daniel Bryan does not believe in him. The fact that he wants to prove himself to Daniel Bryan while going out there and being the best heel on the card and the best, and most importantly, he's winning all the time. He made Dolph Ziggler interesting, and this entire thing only really took off because of Daniel Bryan.
You have to factor in Daniel Bryan. Like for a feud to work, both parties have to be like really involved. And Daniel Bryan's kind of just taking a backseat, throwing opponents at him. That's not satisfying. You don't see Daniel Bryan.
I'm sorry. Was Vince McMahon completely involved in every single time that Austin and him had a match, or did Vince McMahon sometimes sit back and throw people at him?
Yeah, but the thing is, Vince McMahon got in the ring with Stone Cold Steve Austin. Daniel Bryan will never get in the ring with The Miz ever again. So there's no going to be real gratifying payoff. Dolph Ziggler is not a payoff.
Well, I think the comparison of those two feuds in the same sentence kind of makes you cringe a little bit because this is good stuff, but this is not Austin versus Vince McMahon level worthy.
No, at the same time, like you're taking the face GM who's the most over guy on your roster, and you went, we can really do something with this guy while touching on years worth of history and turning it into something that helped out The Miz and made everything that he's doing, even if the other person is not as interesting, more interesting because Daniel Bryan is actually the centerpiece that The Miz revolves around on that roster.
I think a lot of what's going on though with that feud is that The Miz is just having a great run right now, and I think anybody can concede that he's having the best run of his career. But I don't think that the feud with Daniel Bryan is the reason why. I just think The Miz has improved more and more over time, and that's to me just it doesn't add fuel to the fire for it to be feud of the year because Daniel Bryan just being a GM and being a guy who, you know, all his best segments coming on Talking Smack, and that's something that, yeah, a lot of us hardcore fans, we love, you know, it's cool. But guys who are just watching the shows week in, week out, I don't think they're sitting there saying, I got to see Talking Smack. And that's why WWE has to go to the length to show that again the next week on SmackDown because they have to reassure everyone, hey, this is what's going on. I think The Miz is just kind of shining so bright that it may seem like him and Daniel Bryan are having themselves a great feud, but I don't really think Daniel Bryan's all that much of a player in this role at all in terms of it being the best feud of the year.
Speaking of best feud of the year, really quickly, because I know we haven't even touched on Justin's yet.
Because it's hard to knock down.
ROH did that feud 100 times better, and they did it for a couple of years.
Hey,
and quite frankly, when they get to WWE and there is already a measuring stick in place, I expect them to at least meet the measuring stick.
All right,
they did not meet the measuring stick. This is the biggest stage. They've got to do it bigger and better. And if you watched in 2011, the truth is they just didn't.
Here's the thing, though. That feud in ROH helped this feud. I mean, it's good to have that there for reference. For some fans can go back and like, oh my gosh, this is a tie-in and all that. But you don't even need that. WWE did a good job of saying that's a part of it. But the big thing is what started in NXT, and it just grew. It kept growing and growing. And the fact that Kevin Owens and them, it's just about trying to be better than each other. That neither can be successful while they keep fighting each other. And they need to find resolution there. The conclusion at Battleground was perfect. Where Sami Zayn kicks him twice on the head to say it's done, it's over. I beat the biggest problem in my career. And it's just a great story. And like Kevin Owens was so good at being like a psychopath. Like, you never really cared about me, and like this whole like a friendship breaking apart, and it's like the most personal and most realistic feud we've had since Dean Ambrose versus Seth Rollins, which ended terribly with a genie hologram from like Bray Wyatt. This one actually had a proper resolution, and it felt like an actual wrestling feud that we got back in the day, where it felt like these two people actually didn't like each other, and they really had to wrestle and like finish something. It was a finale to it, and it just felt like a legit. In like ROH was a great supplemental career.
Over the past few months, we've had Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn face off almost as many times as they did in their feud.
And I think that
we just keep going back to it and going back to it, and it's it's not like I'm excited to go back to it. At this point, it kind of feels like John Cena versus Randy Orton. It's
When you
two guys who,
mentioned-
if I never see them touch
Definitely not
again,
that
I'd be
explosive.
happy.
Well,
Let's
when
not
you
go
mentioned
crazy.
NXT, I think that was where your argument loses validity, because what they had in NXT was better than anything they've done on the main roster, and that's really been that has really been the biggest
They
problem.
had their best match at Battleground this year, and that was
With-
their best match in the WWE umbrella. It was best at Battleground. It was a great
But the
wrapping point,
best
great story.
elements to the feud all happened in NXT when Kevin Owens
That was
first
the
made
start,
his
and then they
debut,
added.
and they had that match where they told the whole story of Kevin Owens is superior to Sami Zayn. He is the ultimate underdog. They have not told that level of story
Yes, they did.
on the
Chapter
main
one.
roster.
Chapter 1 was
Not-
NXT. Chapter 2 was
not
Sami
to
Zayn coming
mention-
in the Rumble, costing Kevin Owens a title shot, causing Kevin Owens the Intercontinental title at
But then did
WrestleMania.
that feud kind of
he-
just go by the wayside for like a few months? I
It
feel
really
like that.
did.
Yeah, it
No,
kind of
didn't.
just.
It was always Sami Zayn
Not
was
to
always
mention that
there was
feud was
hockey
a
fighting.
really bright spot at the beginning, and then a pretty bright spot at the end. And in the middle, there's like, you say there's like a moment here and a moment there, but if you didn't say that he interrupted him at the Rumble, I'm like, I know they kind of like did stuff here and there, but I'm not entirely sure what those things are.
Kevin
Whereas
Owens
like
attacked him backstage, threw him through a table. Kevin Owens did this. Sami Zayn always came out. They kept hockey fighting each other. Even at Payback, when there was first their blow-off match, and Kevin Owens won, Sami Zayn was like, "No, I'm not done with this." He kept beating Kevin Owens. They kept besting each other. The Fatal 4-Way at Extreme Rules was another great match they had with Miz and Cesaro placed into it. They kept growing and doing new things with the story to keep it fresh, keep it interesting. Money in the Bank. They kept adding to it, and making it grander, and just like they're waiting, like this has to end. This has to stop. Battleground is it, and they fulfilled that destiny. It was like a great match, great story told. I feel like it had all the pieces of a great feud, and they executed it flawlessly. NXT or ROH were Chapter 1. This was the finale. This was the grand finale. And I feel like they did everything they needed to do to make this feud get over. Fans were into it. We were into it. Great matches. Great personalities. It was like the perfect storm of a feud. And I think that's why it's Feud of the Year.
Okay, so let's go ahead and start bringing this first round to a close. It's time for you all to deliver your closing arguments. Why is your pick for Feud of the Year the best feud of 2016? We're going to start things off with Evan this time around.
Well, AJ Styles versus John Cena has come to fruition, and it's delivered you a couple of the best matches that you've seen in the last couple of years. And not only that, but it is not finished necessarily. We talk about Chapter 1 or Chapter 2 of a feud. There is still more to come now with John Cena's return on the horizon here in the next few days. And with AJ Styles being WWE Champion, now this feud can become a WWE Championship feud and evolve into the next level that it hasn't even gotten to yet. And we got a couple of the best matches, plus a squeaky clean win for AJ Styles at SummerSlam. And not only that, but you talk about Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, the best has already happened in NXT. And we talk about Daniel Bryan and The Miz, and I honestly think that everything that's going on with those two has been more The Miz shining bright like a star and Daniel Bryan kind of just being there and having things to say. But because he can't lace them up, it's already no good as far as I'm concerned. AJ Styles, John Cena, Feud of the Year, and not only that, but it is magical because it is something that people dreamed about for a decade, now coming true.
Justin?
With AJ Styles, John Cena started out strong, but then they deflated at Monday. That ending really did ruin that feud, the Money in Bank match, because there was no need for that. They overbooked it, they overmeddled with it, and it became kind of not like a wasteland for 2 months until SummerSlam, which was a good match. But then they ruined it with No Mercy, but by throwing that in and not giving you a satisfying conclusion there, even if it happens later, at where we're at right now, 2016, it wasn't satisfying enough, and it was overblown. With Daniel Bryan and Miz, it's a non-feud. It shouldn't even be allowed to be in this discussion because Daniel Bryan's not going to fight in this feud. Miz is the only one pulling all the legwork, and it's a great character model for the Miz, but it's not really a feud. And I think it's a trash thing to pick from Duke's part, personally. Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, it's that feud. It's just everything we think of what makes a great feud: the characters, the story, how the fans can get invested in and like relate to it and understand it. It's just the perfect storm of a feud. And I feel that they had great beginnings in ROH and every other indie place they placed. NXT was a great add-on, great start for WWE's version of it. And just like this year, it was just the perfect wave, and just how we're gonna go full force with this, and we're gonna knock it out. And I feel like they did. And that's my argument.
And Duke.
Okay, so these other two feuds were very paint by numbers, and in the sense they deserve to be more because the numbers were so clearly already there. Oh, we brought AJ Styles and his buddies in. Well, since AJ Styles has these buddies, let's have the buddies help him out. Okay, what do we do next? Oh, perfect. I have an idea. Let's go ahead and just kind of like build up to this match right away because we know everybody wants to see it. And then we'll give it to them. We'll do the tag match. We'll give it to them again. And there's going to be a return match where we'll probably have John Cena go over. And it's very a paint-by-numbers feud where the degree of difficulty in getting Daniel Bryan and The Miz to work is incredibly hard. It's so hard when you have one guy who you know beforehand is not going to wrestle, and now he has to put these set pieces into place. He has to move pieces around on his roster. He has to be able to convince you that Dolph Ziggler, nobody gives a shit about Dolph Ziggler. He has to be able to convince you that Dolph Ziggler is a worthy opponent for The Miz. And he does so. He continues to build off of other things there. And the fact that they're able to play so much off of a guy that actually is bringing nothing to the ring is just speaks more to the level that this feud has to work on solely from being on an acting and microphone setting.
Man, I have a tough decision on my hands. I'm going to go ahead and start with Justin. You kind of got lost in the sauce early on because it wasn't until later into the conversation that your pick even came up. And when it actually did come up, one of the biggest criticisms, or the biggest criticism that was waged against the Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn feud was this belief that there were some inconsistencies with the booking that were too big to get over. And I don't believe that you battled back against that criticism effectively enough for me to consider you in contention for the win in this round in particular. So for me, it's down to Duke and Evan, and both of you guys delivered some strong arguments from an offensive standpoint and defensive. Duke, he came out ready to throw blows, but Evan, you ducked and dodged them when Duke was talking about the disappointment with John Cena and AJ Styles, that feud, and you said, well, yeah, this has produced, two of the best matches that we've seen in recent memory. So that was some good stuff from you there. And on the side of Duke, you had to battle against people believing that this wasn't even really a friggin' feud. But I like that you twisted that negative into a positive kind of, and you talked about how unconventional the feud was and how that was actually a good thing. And then it actually did transfer some overness into more conventional elements of wrestling, like The Miz's character overall and its feud with Dolph Ziggler. So, yeah, I don't know. This is going to be tough. Why didn't you guys tell me judging was going to be so difficult?
Yeah, it's a tough job.
If you don't pick Evan, I'm going to be very upset. I'm going to be more upset that I didn't win this if you give it to Duke, because that's not a feud.
No.
That's
see,
not
the
a
thing
feud.
is, with what Duke was saying,
it was trash. Come on, Jay. It's not a feud.
It is
it's
feud.
not a
It's
feud.
a pretty
Give it
out
to the
there
actual
pick,
feud.
but technically it is a feud.
It's
I don't.
It's not going to be satisfying.
No,
Okay, you go ahead.
Duke delivered a very strong argument, and I think that there was a lot of value in what he said. But I got to give the point to Evan.
Thank God. Thank God.
All right, baby. That's how we started up.
Evan, I got to say, I'm impressed. I'm really impressed. I've been warning you behind the scenes to get ready because these dudes are some damn barracudas, but you brought out a different side of you I've never really seen before. So,
Man, the silent killer, man. That's how you get it done. You don't have to be a barracuda to be the biggest fish in the tank here.
All right. Well, I guess
that.
so far so good because that is the end of the first round, and Evan is currently in the lead with 1 point. But Duke and Justin will be looking to get on the board in round number 2 with the following question. In the years 2016, we've seen many a weekly wrestling show. Some of them are here to stay. Others have come along, met their purpose, and then went away. But we are nonetheless looking for the most well-rounded show, the cream of the crop. In other words, the A show. So, to the panel, I ask you this question. What is the A show of 2016? First up in round number 2 is Justin.
Well, Jay, let me tell you. What show currently has Samoa Joe, Nakamura, Bobby Roode, Ty Dillinger, The Revival, DIY? Oh, I'm just going to say it's NXT, and it's the most obvious choice ever in the world, probably, I think. So I think that I'm just saying the name NXT over the past couple of years can just resonate like, yeah, I get it. Yeah, that's why it's a show of the year. So I'll leave it there and wait for the fight. But NXT is my pick.
Okay, Justin with NXT. What you got, Duke?
Okay, so my pick didn't completely get rated by Raw or SmackDown and be left to be shit. My show was short. It did what it was done, and it's the best iteration that we have seen of it from the WWE, and that is the Cruiserweight Classic.
Okay, and finally, Evan, what's your pick?
My pick is pretty obvious. Ever since the draft has been finished, WWE SmackDown Live has been the show to watch in terms of WWE, and it is the A show now, taking Raw and kicking its ass to the curb. Gotta go with SmackDown. Interesting characters and giving you a reason to watch the blue brand, a reason that you didn't have over the last few years prior to it. Gotta go with SmackDown.
Now that all of the picks for A Show of 2016 have been made, time to fight it out.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and start off by just saying that SmackDown Live is a show right now that has interesting characters, unlike Monday Night Raw. And not only that, but when you consider the fact that the most people who watch wrestling watch Raw or SmackDown or both, are not only more entertained by SmackDown, but the fact that they are actually outdoing Raw is a compliment to the show, and it's the first time that that's been the case since somewhere in the mid-2000s. I mean, we're talking about the post-draft coming out and having finally a time where you could actually watch SmackDown and you can enjoy this show. I mean, this is like newfound territory for the brand. And plus, to what Duke had said in the previous argument, you have one of the most dynamic and interesting feuds going on with both Daniel Bryan and The Miz talking smack, a special show that comes on afterwards.
I'm sorry. Did you pick Talking Smack?
I did not pick Talking Smack, but Talking Smack is a compliment to SmackDown.
Talking Smack is supplemental stuff. You can use what is addressed on SmackDown.
All right, well, they go ahead and they show replays of Talking Smack on SmackDown Live. So
is that because the interviews and content on SmackDown isn't as good?
No, all it tells you is that the interviews and content on SmackDown deserve to have extra time that can't just be filled within 2 hours.
Okay, and I assume with this new show, Raw Talk, that the same is also true then, that they have so much interesting stuff going on that they just can't fill their 3 hours as well?
Well, Monday Night Raw has 3 hours, and those 3 hours are a snooze fest, so I don't know why you're wasting your time on Monday nights, but...
I'll tell you
well, I mean, if their talk show is... If your talk show's for that, wouldn't Raw's talk show also be for that?
It could be for the same purpose, doesn't mean it's as good.
Why are we fighting over Talking Smack? That's not what he picked. Anyway, let me get back to this. Okay, NXT. Let me hit you with this, okay? Look at NXT TakeOver Dallas. Look at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Both are before WrestleMania and SummerSlam. Both blew those big shows away. Like, I felt more invested about NXT Dallas than I did WrestleMania. And I was at WrestleMania. I cared more about NXT Dallas.
Look at the leader decay and the final deletion. I care more about those, but that doesn't mean I'm out here picking TNA.
I about did, but that's not besides the point. Why are you bringing up random stuff that has nothing to do with this debate here? What I'm saying with
discredit the fact that you can't just use two different shows to act like I care about anything on the card. The quality of wrestling does not equal the quality of the show.
Oh, quality of wrestling, you say. Nakamura versus Joe. We've had that this year. Nakamura versus Finn Balor. Nakamura versus Sami Zayn. We have Joe versus Finn Balor. We have the rival versus American Alpha and the DIY. We have like a plethora of wrestling. NXT is the best pure wrestling show going on today. That if you don't look at WWE wise, since we're talking about WWE only things right now, I think even beats out Cruiserweight Classic and if you talk about things being rated and like torn to shreds, like look at the Cruiserweight division right now. How's that doing, buddy? And that's because it was rated.
But I'm not talking about the Cruiserweight division right now. Every person who came out there to wrestle in the Cruiserweight Classic was shown in a little video package telling you who their character was. That's better presentation than the WWE does currently. If I tuned into SmackDown tomorrow and I saw James Ellsworth, or on Tuesday, sorry, if I saw James Ellsworth on my TV, I would have no idea what the fuck this guy is doing in the ring with Dean Ambrose or AJ Styles. And even if they showed me their little recap videos, I still wouldn't understand who James Ellsworth is. I wouldn't understand who AJ Styles is. I wouldn't understand who Dean Ambrose was if I wasn't a watcher. On the Cruiserweight Classic, you turn in, they will show you the story of this guy, the path he has went on through his matches, and it just keeps progressing to give you a character before the match where even if you're tuning in to episode 6, you understand who this guy has been.
At the same time, You can't ignore the fact, the big elephant in the room, that the Cruiserweight division has tarnished what the Cruiserweight Classic was. And you can even look at the finale of the Cruiserweight Classic. TJ Perkins was not their choice to win, yet they were forced into picking him into winning it. So you don't even get a valid winner of the tournament. It kind of devalues the entire tournament a little bit, don't you think? And SmackDown Live, it's still a main roster show. You still get some dumb shit. You get the Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt feud, which was trash. You get a bunch of little.
Look what's going on now.
Not to mention, we're picking
They're the
an
tag
entire
team
year. I
champions.
bring up 6 months before the brand split. You
And that
have
too.
half of a year that you're looking at for your
Versus
show.
supplement
I have
comment.
the luxury of my show was a contained spot where WWE knew how they want to execute it. They brought in the right guys. They brought Brian Kendrick back and made him arguably one of the most cared about people. They brought in Cedric
Yeah, I hear him
Alexander.
getting cheered
That
right now,
match
can't
with
I?
Kota Ibushi. You have
these men are
all
getting
this
cheered
different.
right now, aren't they?
You have all of these different pieces that in that Cruiserweight Classic created drama between guys that you may have never had any idea who they were, but because they gave you an idea of who their character is and what you're supposed and what you should be expecting with it being a Cruiserweight Classic and them delivering.
But
It was
that very
perfect. They let them be cruiserweights, and they didn't do that on the main roster.
That very containment is exactly, I think, what the biggest drawback of that show can be, is because it's the same formulaic stuff. We talk about paint by numbers. It's the same type of thing. You're going to get the same type format match. It's the same type of, what flip can we do this match around? And yeah, maybe there's some stories there, but there's no dynamic element. And not only that, but SmackDown Live's case can be made for, maybe the first few months weren't the best, but the fact that there could be that stark of a turnaround for this show in the course of just 1 year, in under 1 year, just because of a brand split, it's unbelievable. That just makes its case that much stronger, because that means the second half of the year was from 0 to 100. The show literally went from one end of the spectrum to the other, and that's something that neither NXT or the Cruiserweight Classic can say.
Because
NXT hasn't been
stayed
good.
consistently good. Even when they got pillaged in the
did
summer,
not
they
stay
stayed good.
consistently good.
Yes, they did,
when
dude.
when the
Nobody's fucking
draft
stupid about
happened,
this.
they lost their mid card. They lost their complete mid card.
Their mid
Now
card's still there, from what I can see. We got Andre Cien almost there. We got.
Andre.
He's not bad.
Andrade.
Not anymore.
His name's Andrade.
I don't know. I think the audience for NXT is a little more niche. I find myself as a lifelong fan, as somebody who cares a lot more about watching the takeovers and the specials than I do about seeing week-to-week NXT event.
You're missing some good
That's
stuff, man.
exactly how I
You're
am
missing
as well.
some really
NXT
good stuff.
is more of a clip show than it is a must-see television show.
Then you're
The
missing out on the
Cruiserweight
good.
Classic, you cannot get clips. You can get clips from SmackDown, everything like that. If I miss an episode of SmackDown, I don't have to hurry to Hulu to see it. I can hurry to YouTube and watch it in
You don't have to hurry
15
for Cruiserweight
minutes.
Classic either. It's on the network right now.
if
so we
I'm
didn't know
if
that we
I'm
wanted
watching
to
if I'm
watch it.
watching the Cruiserweight Classic and they show me something in like there, they may show you a little bit of the match, but that part of the match was typically so good that you wanted to go back and watch the entire thing. As much
That's not
as
true at all.
as much as I am a fan of SmackDown, I can't say that about SmackDown. And NXT, I put it as more of a clip show than Raw, because there's just so few things that I care
You're
about with
missing
it being a developmental.
But you're missing the. See, sometimes it's not about the destination; it's about the journey to it. And sometimes you just miss the little nuances that are in those little shows leading up to a takeover, like the Joe and Nakamura feud. There's always these little things with Joe cutting a promo, which they don't show in the actual video packages. I've noticed, because I've been watching a lot, and I feel like they're missing so many little things. But it builds to great feuds. Like, it's a simple wrestling show. Triple H has built a model where it's like they wrestle, tell the story there, a promo here and there. We get to the takeover, the big blow off. We move on. We continue growing and growing. And I think even he survived that the big
And I
raid
think
over the
they're
summer. Which
taking
Duke
a
was
step
talking
back.
about it. Hey, am I talking right now? When my hand goes up,
And
you
I'm
go
telling you
silent.
that I think they took a step back, not growing.
Yeah, it's growing a lot, actually, if you think about it, because they're doing their own town. They're getting all these big, like, Andre Cien almost, they're getting him, like, he was a botch at first, and they're fixing him. Like, they realize their mistakes, and they fix it. And the same with Ty Dillinger. I never gave a shit about Ty Dillinger until this year when he faced Bobby Roode, and they really made him, like, that Fatal 4-Way, which happened on last NXT, when I was like, oh my God, I want Ty Dillinger to win, so I want him to beat Bobby Roode. I was, like, invested in these characters, which you would never think you would, because NXT just continues to grow. Like, okay, we lost a Finn Balor. Okay, let's fix that. Let's get a Bobby Roode in here. And they always know how to revolve it. They lose their mid-card, but they always find a way to keep things fresh and original and keep things moving to where you want to see the next takeover. You want to see the next NXT special. I think, not special, it's just NXT. I don't know. It's just called NXT. It's weird. They should name it something else. NXT.
But to me, what makes a show the best show of the year is a stark room of improvement. And SmackDown, since the draft, has been very consistent. Not only that, but it reaches the most people. There's been the most people that watch it. You have a revitalized tag team division. You have a women's division that is exposing, and therefore,
why did the Orton and Wyatt have to beat Heath Slater and Rhino?
But look at a team like the Usos, who have been completely revitalized as a result of this.
That's why they're not using them.
Are they really that much of a flop, or are they a heck of a lot better than them when they're
not using them? So I assume American Alpha is also a flop because they're not using them.
No, not necessarily, because the thing is, they haven't had a time to actually come to fruition yet on the main roster, right?
Because they haven't. I think they've dropped the ball with these new people they have on the draft, like American Alpha.
But that's more on the creative team. That's not on the quality.
Heath Slater and Rhino had to get more over than American Alpha. I don't know how that happened. It somehow happened. I don't get it.
Because they were
facing AJ Styles,
and they were funny, and there was creative video packages with them, and.
You have a good roster that was then moved towards focusing on a James Ellsworth involvement in a Dean Ambrose and a AJ Styles feud, in which James Ellsworth, instead of being used as a compliment or something like that, or kind of, like to progress the story, has instead became the centerpiece of that story. And actually now, after Dean Ambrose moved out, James Ellsworth had a match with AJ Styles.
Yeah, and the weird part is a lot of people are actually responding positively to that, whether you are or not. A lot of people are enjoying James Ellsworth. In fact, he's got his own line of merchandise. He's got his own T-shirt now. I mean this guy's doing pretty
SmackDown
well.
Live.
What is the long-term goal of? Sorry, Justin. Let me just finish this one off, because yours will flow a lot better off of it. What is the long-term goal of pushing James Ellsworth? Is this guy going to be a world champion for you, an IC champion for you, or is he going to be a jobber that for this 3, 4, 5 months is fun to push? It's kind of like the reason that you don't go all the way with Santino Marella.
Yeah, well, and they haven't, because it's not like they put a title on him yet. I mean, you look at John Cena; he's coming back this coming Tuesday.
He pinned AJ Styles 3 times, or at least beat him.
Yeah, and there's been other enhancement talents over the course of time that have done similar things, and it's frustrated the people who are very into professional wrestling, but it's not necessarily pissing the people off who are watching the show on a week-to-week basis who are casual fans.
This is what breaks down with SmackDown, how WWE views SmackDown Live. What was the main event title match at SummerSlam for SmackDown Live? Dolph Ziggler versus Dean Ambrose. It was the least anticipated match on that entire card. That's how they feel about SmackDown Live. And so
it might have been the least anticipated match on the card to a certain extent, but people were starting to suddenly care about Dolph Ziggler. In fact, I remember when a specific Jay, who is involved in this show, maybe perhaps just a little bit, was out there making videos on why Dolph Ziggler didn't belong in the main event. And I remember that reception was so mixed that he was actually getting a lot of thumbs down and a lot of heat for doing so, for saying so. A lot of people were liking the idea of Dolph Ziggler. Well, I'm just saying.
If you're an idiot, you like Dolph Ziggler. There's a lot of idiots.
SmackDown Live
talk about characters that you like.
Has been a platform for new characters to get exposed in different lights, and Dolph Ziggler was one of those people that a lot of people still like. Again, it's not about whether you guys actually like Dolph Ziggler or not. It's whether or not the masses like Dolph Ziggler or not. And apparently,
new characters to get exposed and be introduced in a different and be used in a different way. The Cruiserweight Classic.
Did you even watch the Cruiserweight
Tommaso.
Classic?
Yes, I did. I watched every single episode.
I doubt you did.
I watched every single episode. You have the Brian Kendrick saga with Daniel Bryan. You have Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano having one of the best matches of the year from a tag team that just came together to have a match on the Cruiserweight Classic and made it really important. And they made that match feel like a big deal. It was built up to like a big deal. That match belonged on WrestleMania as far as quality goes and quality of build. And it wasn't really anything besides like the Cruiserweight Classic, because they went back to NXT and became a team again. I mean, you drew from what was there and then you used it again. That was the crux argument of your last point. So don't be trying to steal it for NXT.
Alrighty, guys, that's it for the debating. Now it is time to deliver your closing arguments for a show of 2016. Duke, I don't know, that kind of sounded like a closing argument to me, but if you want to try to deliver that knockout punch, feel free to do so.
We're talking about Brian Kendrick, Cedric Alexander, Rich Swann. You had the Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano stuff. You had all these fantastic matches, Ibushi versus Cedric, all of these different, just fun things. You got to see people that you would never think you'd see in a WWE ring, and some guys that'll probably never sign with the WWE. And it all came together. It was well contained. And although it was formulaic in a tournament, I don't think that's a bad thing. I don't know how else you were going to do it.
Right. Evan?
Well, SmackDown Live is the most improved show of 2016, and not only that, but the best show of 2016, because you have a brand on main WWE television, something that gets so much criticism and so much flack for always being underwhelming and this, that, the other, and you have a show now that people can care about and people can get invested into through various different characters that have now emerged and had an opportunity to emerge as a result of the brand split. And you see an improved women's division, you see an improved tag team division, and hell, you even see an improved Randy Orton, who many people would have assumed by 2016 wasn't going to have much else to give. And not only that, but when you have AJ Styles leading the way as your WWE champion on the blue brand, you have something going very, very special out on SmackDown Live. Talk about most improved show. Goes from a show that people didn't care about and didn't watch ever, just watched Raw, to now being the one show that is must-see each week on WWE television.
And Justin?
I think when it comes to Cruiserweight Classic, I've got to knock these guys down first. The Cruiserweight Classic, it was okay. At the moment, it was good, but now if you look back on it, it's really tarnished. That 205 Live and what they're doing in the Cruiserweight division really hurt that show. And plus, they didn't get the real winner they wanted. They wanted either Kota Ibushi or Zack Sabre Jr. to win it. They got neither of them. They picked TJ Perkins as the third winner. That's a really good stamp on your tournament, especially when the winner of the tournament lost his Cruiserweight belt like a month later. It was like, oh, that was such a great purpose of that tournament, right? Really good use of it. Really devalues that tournament, and I think that hurts it. Were there some good matches on it? Yes. Was there some good little character moments? Yes, but I can't say it's best. And plus, it was only a fragment of the year. I can't give it the nod as the best show of the year. If we're going to go like from a harder bar, NXT has a much harder bar. SmackDown Live has a much harder bar going from pillar to post as a year, and I feel like SmackDown Live, it's a main roster show. You're going to get the good with the bad a lot, and there's a lot of bad. And it's because the Bray Wyatt Randy Orton feud was sucky until they decided to team up. They called them all again, and like there was a bunch of the SummerSlam feud. They got all these little stupid things that happened there. Like why aren't they using American Apple? Why aren't they propping them up to be this big thing? Because NXT did them right. Like, and it seems like NXT does them a lot right. And with NXT, they had that big raid over the summer. They lost a lot of talent. Like, they could have lost their mid card, but Triple H looked at it. I'm going to give him a lot of the credit here. It could be William Regal. It could be a bunch of other people. It's like, okay, how do we sustain this? We get Bobby Roode. We do this. We do that. We keep things moving. We keep things pushing. Like, we haven't got hurt. We keep going. And from the start of the year to the end of the year, NXT has been the most consistently good show. You'll find a great payoff show. You get the nice little what a build-up show should be. You get some wrestling. You get some talking. You get the character movements. You move on. Like, you could not watch Raw and SmackDown and just watch the pay-per-views, and you'd still that's not a good knock on NXT, I think, because you could do that with any of the shows. And I feel like NXT is the most consistent. You got the best characters, got the best matches of the year in there, and I think it's just the most, from pro to post, most consistently good show. So I give it the nod as best show of the year.
Evan, early on, I noticed that you used the poor quality of Monday Night Raw to prop up your argument of why SmackDown was so good. And while that's not necessarily a bad thing in a general sense, it didn't prove to be that effective in this specific instance, because your objective here wasn't to prove that SmackDown was better than Raw. You needed to prove that SmackDown was better than NXT and the Cruiserweight Classic to gain an advantage here in this round of Last Mark Standing. So you kind of worked yourself into a hole a bit early on, and you tried to work your way out of it, but Duke and Justin were determined to make sure your ass stayed right down there. They went on this calculated assault against SmackDown and bringing up some not so shiny components of the show, and they forced you into a corner to a point where you had to defend James motherfucking Ellsworth. And it goes without saying that that is a very tough job to do. Now, over on the side of Justin, you did a much better job in this round of directly battling against the criticisms that were waged against your pick versus what you did in the first round. But something that I noticed that Duke was very effective of doing, he kind of twisted you guys around in a sense that he didn't prevent you from delivering strong arguments, but he did he forced you to alter your perspective to a point where, basically, here's what I'm trying to say. Evan, I think that you delivered a great argument in favor of SmackDown being the best main roster show and SmackDown being the most improved show of 2016. And Justin, you delivered a great argument in favor of NXT being the most resilient show of 2016. But when it comes down to the A show of 2016 and the strongest argument in that regard, I got to give this round to Duke.
Yes.
Yeah, you did a really good job of playing up the successes of the Cruiserweight Classic, pushing off any criticism, and making sure that we understood the difference between that self-contained entity versus what the Cruiserweight division has become since it ended. It was another unconventional pick, but it proved to be successful this time around, with Duke winning round number 2, gaining 1 point, and now he is tied with Evan going into the third and final round. Even though Justin currently sits at 0, he still has a chance to run away with this entire thing because the final round of Last Mark Standing is worth 2 points. So that means whoever wins this round wins this overall edition of Last Mark Standing. And the final round is this. We wouldn't have a feud of the year to discuss. We wouldn't have an A-Show award to hand out were it not for the wrestlers. They form the foundation of what wrestling is all about. So, final question for this edition of Last Mark Standing. Who is the wrestler of the year? Justin, go ahead and take it away.
Well, back in the first time I've ever done a W special, this is like my second, third, fourth, one of those times. One of the first times I ever participated in this. I picked Bully Ray as my superstar of the year. And that was a TNA guy that was never going to get any votes. I just picked it because TNA guy. This is a TNA guy I fully believe deserves this spot. And it feels so weird saying that because, my God, Matt Hardy used to be such a train wreck. But, my God, Broken Matt Hardy is the shit. He is the greatest thing to happen this year. And I'm going to leave it at that. And I'm going to break down his broken brilliance later on in the fight.
Okay, Justin with Broken Matt Hardy. Who do you got, Duke?
All right, well, when I looked at it, I thought, man, there's a lot of obvious ones. You have your AJ Styles, you have your Samoa Joes and stuff like that. But then I really looked at who had the best year overall. And I think that person from consistency of booking is The Miz.
Oh, fuck. Ms. Mark.
All right, Evan, who's your pick for Wrestler of the Year?
Hey, you've got your A's and you've got your J's and you've got your Styles because AJ Styles is the man of the year 2016. Not a question about it. Finally in WWE, already seen the top of the chain at TNA, already seen it in New Japan, and now a top-level guy in WWE. Who better than AJ Styles, the phenomenal one?
I think there's a lot better than AJ Styles, not because of AJ Styles' skills. I think it's mostly because of the stuff he got put into. There was that large portion of the year where you didn't care about that Chris Jericho feud. And
I didn't.
And there's just this long period of time, and then you get into the John Cena stuff, and it gets good. And then you get into the Dean Ambrose stuff, and it really starts to get boring again. And then we bring in James fucking Ellsworth. And then James Ellsworth comes to play.
I don't think
boy, did that absolutely ruin everything that they had established with that John Cena part. Because having having AJ Styles face Dean Ambrose, that's fine. But the James Ellsworth stuff, he was being pushed as a bigger star on a show that's supposedly built around AJ Styles at this point in time.
Things that have happened with James Ellsworth are not going to overshadow everything else that has gone on with AJ Styles this year when it comes to his Royal Rumble debut, which stole the Royal Rumble by itself. And then you move into the summer where AJ Styles has the best feud of the year.
So you're going to miss the stuff with Chris Jericho?
John Cena.
We're just going to skip that feud.
We're just going to move
Let's skip
honestly,
the part where he lost Roman Reigns too.
Wasn't even that bad.
Actually, lost his first WrestleMania match to Chris Jericho. Fandango beat Jericho at WrestleMania.
Yes. And the winner-loss doesn't affect whether he had
it kind of does.
I think it
really doesn't.
He would have had a better year. But the only problem is he just had some of these moments that you're like, their highs were really high, but the lows were really low. And I discount that Royal Rumble debut because AJ Styles came to WWE. If that happened in 2015, 2014, 2013, 2012, the response is going to be somewhat similar. It wasn't necessarily because of what he did in the Rumble. It was because he was at the Rumble.
Yeah, and that helps to further the case of why 2016 is his year, because this is where he starts. He gets his start right in the beginning. And not only that, but I'm not going to discount the fact that Chris Jericho's feud with him was a little bit confusing at times. But what I am going to say is that what happened with Roman Reigns was excellent. That was one of the best feuds going on in WWE at that time. And not only that, but AJ Styles brought out the best in Roman Reigns and unlocked another level of Roman Reigns that other feuds and opponents couldn't do for Roman Reigns. The thing about AJ Styles isn't necessarily the wins and losses this year. The thing about AJ Styles is that he brings out the best in every single opponent that he faces. That's why AJ Styles is the best in the world. That's why he's still at the top of the mountains.
That is the argument that Dolph Ziggler makes when he wakes up every morning in the mirror.
Yeah, except
it's not about the wins and losses.
Except the difference is that Dolph Ziggler always loses, and AJ Styles is the WWE champion right now. And not only that, but he has that squeaky clean win over John Cena and then wins the title the next month. So the best momentum in the entire WWE outside of Brock Lesnar winning a UFC fight and then dismantling Randy Orton, the best momentum swing of the entire year is those 2 months with AJ Styles. No one else is even close to that. And The Miz, we talk about how he got better as the year went along, but the first few months of the year were pretty forgettable as far as The Miz goes. And his IC title reigns have all been kind of snooze fests until the most recent one, to be completely honest.
Until he went on Talking Smack and talked to Daniel Bryan, Miz was a non-factor. I mean, I didn't like the Maurice thing at first. That grew him when he confronted Daniel Bryan. His WrestleMania match, I was so pissed that he was near winning. I was more pissed that Zack Ryder won, but I was more pissed that he was even in the contention of it. Because it's not because it's a heel either. It's because this man did not deserve that over the other men in that match.
No, the guy who's put how many years into this business did not deserve it?
Neither did Zack Ryder. No, they didn't, because
Zack Ryder, the perfect thing there was that Miz is so despised that people who watch The Miz, although he has put on match after match after match that you can put up there and say, this is a good match, people look at The Miz and they say, oh, well, he's just not good enough. And The Miz took that and made that his entire character. You're talking about a guy who makes subtle tweaks to keep this character fresh and relevant, a guy who's continuously worked and just found little things. When my hand goes up, your mouth goes shut. Little things like that. Just moments that just could draw a real reaction. There are a lack of true heels on the roster, and The Miz is a true heel. The Miz isn't trying to be cool.
If you want to have best heel, he's in the contention, but he's still not going to win that either. I don't think that there's. I mean, Miz shouldn't even be in this discussion.
Who is a better heel than The Miz?
Kevin Owens.
Kevin Owens.
No, he's not.
Jericho's a better heel.
No, he's not.
Yes, he is.
Kevin Owens.
All of these guys are cool heels. If you're talking about a guy who actually gets the desired response, can get the baby face cheered and rallied behind, it is The Miz. The Miz is that guy. Jay gave a shit about Dolph Ziggler through The Miz. The Miz has had arguably the best feud on television.
I give you had a good SmackDown. End of the year, but I wouldn't say his year as a whole has been great, because there's that. I remember the Extreme Rules match where, Cesaro, Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn, all three of these are good options. Miz is not a good option to win this match. There's always these things Miz should. Why is Miz in the spot? He doesn't belong here. When he confronted Daniel Bryan, it got okay.
Is that there is a perception in your mind that Miz is not the right option. So when Miz wins, he not only does that, he tells you, not only this, but I have made you hate me to the point where you do not want me to win. You do not think I'm on these guys' levels. You are the Daniel Bryan right now trying to hold The Miz down, and that's what makes that storyline work so well, is because you relate with Daniel Bryan, and The Miz is out there putting his ass on the line while you're sitting back not wrestling. And
but is what Daniel Bryan
is he deserving to be in the ring with Cesaro?
But is what Daniel Bryan doing the reason why The Miz is even as good as he is? Because you're saying that he's taking things like little tweaks from Daniel Bryan and using them. Is that not him just copy and pasting Daniel Bryan into The Miz and therefore making The Miz better? So is the credit really due to Daniel Bryan, or is the credit really due to The Miz? Or is the credit really due to Maurice, the ride or die chick, as everyone around here likes to call?
Maurice was bad when she came in, and she got better because she was able to be around a veteran like The Miz.
Oh, because
she was able to work with a veteran. It's the same way that Charlotte got better when she was around Ric Flair, she was able to go off on her own and be better. Like you may say that this Ric Flair Charlotte stuff was bad, but afterwards Charlotte has been phenomenal. It's this little combination of like bringing her in, and the Miz played Ric Flair in that role, and he brought Maryse back to what she used to be. Now, when we look at the entire scope of it all, too, AJ Styles would be a great pick, but there's just so many things that he did this year that just were not at AJ Styles' level. And when we're looking at it,
for you right now.
You're bringing your set of stuff. Your sample size is actually smaller than mine.
Well, it's not in terms of what actually happened. Him winning the WWE Championship, him beating John Cena, that's bigger than anything that The Miz can even say that he's done in 2016.
Right now.
That's not the way that WWE sees it. And again, you're part of the argument from the beginning. But the way you see it doesn't matter to this argument, because we already talked about wins and losses. We can't talk about that. All right, then fine. WWE sees it structurally as the WWE Championship is the top prize. So obviously if he beats John Cena clean, then takes John Cena and implements John Cena into his character and says that he's the face that runs the place because he beat John Cena, it added an element and a depth to AJ Styles that no one else has had that depth this year like AJ has. And you know what's funny is that even though there has been some shit thrown in his direction, he's still come out smelling like a rose every single time. He still puts on one of the most memorable matches of the night. He still impresses every single person who watches him. And he is still the WWE champion with more to come with him and John Cena leading into 2017. So I don't know how anybody could be better than what AJ Styles did. And even if his sample size is small, it's not the size of the sample, it's the quality of it. And the quality of it is to the max.
Here's how I think it, okay? And AJ Styles is a really good pick, and this is why this debate's hard, because you go any direction with it. I think we're talking pure wrestling. AJ Styles would win this hands down. If you put all the pieces together, I don't think his character's always been there. Like, when he was a face, of some rough times as him as a face. Like, if I had to hear him say, I want to do it on my own, like, one more time, I was going to snap on the man. I wanted Roman Reigns to spear the shit out of him. So, it was like, there's some problems there. And, like, as a heel, he's gotten better, but still, he can't beat James Ellsworth 3 times. Even with Dean Ambrose's assistants, kick out of a dirty deeds if you have to, man. I mean, it's James Ellsworth. That's why his character has taken a hit. And I feel like his promo skills have been better than what I expected from AJ Styles, because I've only known him from TNA. But I feel like AJ Styles is a quality pick, but they're still holding back. With Matt Hardy, I'm going to finally bring him up here. His Brooklyn Williams has changed the game effectively, and like he was the big talking point of the summer. It wasn't AJ Styles versus John Cena; it was Broken Matt Hardy in the final deletion, deleted or K. He has changed himself, the game, and how we view wrestling. And a gimmick, kind of like the Undertaker, which should not work, but somehow miraculously it works. I compared him to the fucking Undertaker. I don't do that with anybody lightly, okay? And it's not because of like respect value, just character that shouldn't have got over, but because of the person it got over. And people are still drawn to it. People are still chanting delete and all this stuff. He's created all these little nuances, and he can go from TNA, he can do WCPW, he can go to all these places, and he's still Broken My Heart. People just want to see him party with the man, like do Vanguard 1 and have Senior Benjamin there and Maxwell and all this great stuff that came along with him. And it's not just him. He comes with the whole package of what he is and what he symbolizes the story. His character is revitalizing wrestling before my eyes, and I'm giving him that credit, because in WWE they even tried a cheap value with the Bray Wyatt family New Day thing, and they failed at it. Matt Hardy did something with TNA that did better than WWE Sports Entertainment, Vince McMahon, the creator of it. Matt Hardy did better. That is saying something, and that's why I have to give him to the Broken Brilliance. I'm sure you guys are going to try knocking him down. Can't wait to swat those flies right now, because we're getting to the nitty-gritty here. But AJ Styles is a quality pick. Miz does not belong here in this conversation. And plus, Matt Hardy should win this on the sole fact that he's never been over Jeff, more over than Jeff, and somehow this year he's more over than Jeff Hardy. How? 2011, I'd be like, you're fucking crazy. 2016? Yeah, kind of crazy, but great. Go ahead.
I think a lot of the problem with Matt Hardy for me has just been the fact that a lot of people are kind of just making fun of it more than they're actually seriously like loving it.
Come on.
I think a lot of people just don't take TNA seriously, and they're just like, yeah, something to talk about. And I don't know, man. I mean, Botchamania is something that I consider to be like wrestling royalty, and they got entire exclusive episodes of Botchamania just featuring the Hardys and Broken Matt Hardy.
What he's doing is playing with audience expectation. It's a big revolving revolving door of what you can do with wrestling and how you could what goes on. He took he started not you trying to go and do extreme crazy little things, and he just decided let's make this more grounded. It's not even all that more grounded. It's just more interesting and dynamic what he's doing. He created these little pieces and like I'm going to make this mine and how he's just changing the game. I can't just give AJ Styles this credit for being a great wrestler, which he is. He's a phenomenal, probably best in the world. I'll give him the nod. But at the same time, he was not a game changer this year. Miz was not a game changer this year. Broken Matt Hardy changed the fucking game. People are going to be like thinking about how can we do things like Broken Matt Hardy now. They're not going to be thinking, how can I be like the Miz? How can I be like AJ Styles? Maybe in-ring wise, but not character-wise or anything like that. They're going to be thinking like, how can I be Matt Hardy? How can I go from an uncharismatic guy who eats grapes to the greatest thing in wrestling? I don't know how he did it, but my God, he did it. I was like, oh, this is so stupid. Von Deletion, you need to watch it. Like, you're kind of sucked in like, oh, this is what he's doing. It's a nice a package.
I'm sucked into the stupidity. That's the thing.
Just because it's stupid does not make it bad. I can't knock that.
Yeah, but being stupid does not make you best.
I'm not saying it makes it best.
There's a certain amount of quality.
There's a broken brilliance to it.
There's a certain amount of quality that we are trying to maintain here, and the difference between yours and AJ Styles and The Miz, and I'm even going to lump Evan in here with me because I think it's just such a broad level here, is that these guys are doing legitimate things that don't have like necessarily a certain amount of time before they become irrelevant. I didn't even watch Total Nonstop Deletion. At this point, I've seen enough. At this point, I've seen enough of this Broken Matt Hardy stuff that I'm just like, okay.
You are not the bearer of good in this world.
Now, there's things that are going to stick around. Yes, stuck around. Delete will probably stick around just because it's so easy to use. But that does not, once again,
they chanted it at the Universal title, man. He made his way to SummerSlam.
If you're talking about a guy who's been more useful than he has been in years and been more over than he has been in years, you're talking about The Miz as well, my friend. Because you're forgetting that about that 2011, 2012 time, The Miz was at the second highest that he's ever been compared to right now. And at that point in time, that was when he was WWE champion. And then he just kind of went away for a little bit, got more and more angry, got more and more annoyed with the fact that he wasn't getting opportunities, and it's came through in his character now and really turned him into must-see television. The Miz is the reason I watch. If I'm going to watch SmackDown, I'm going to watch The Miz. I'm not as excited to watch AJ Styles and James Ellsworth or AJ Styles and Dean Ambrose. The only real compelling thing that AJ Styles did this entire year was with John Cena.
And John Cena is the biggest name in wrestling. But anyway, Matt Hardy,
the biggest name in wrestling.
It just happens to be the biggest name in all of wrestling, and the bearer of everything that goes on. But anyway, Matt Hardy, I don't want to say it's by association, but by association with TNA, Matt Hardy's the argument for him is already, I feel like, kind of shot in the water. It's already kind of, there's like a hole in the boat, I feel like, from the beginning, because I don't think that this is the kind of guy who made TNA, like a lot of people just suddenly start watching TNA again who had stopped. Like me, for example. I didn't start watching TNA again because of Broken Matt Hardy. I still haven't watched TNA, and he has had nothing to do with whether or not. And I'm hearing about his kid wrestling a match, and it's sounds
hilarious. King Maxwell.
I'm thinking to myself, this is borderline child abuse, not good wrestling.
He did. Oh, come on.
So I'm not so sure on the whole Matt Hardy thing, man. Is he funny? Does he have his entertaining, aspects? Like, yeah, perhaps, but I would never even lump him into the category of wrestler of the year. Maybe just entertaining act of the year. But to me, entertaining act and wrestler of the year are two completely different things, and there's not one memorable match that Matt Hardy had in 2016, in my opinion, that could stand the test of time as anything that AJ Styles did this year, or even The Miz did this year. I will even give into that to a degree. Like, The Miz had more memorable matches. AJ Styles had more memorable matches. Matt Hardy, what's the most memorable match he had? Something in his backyard against his brother?
Can I debunk something of yours real quick before I get to that debunk? Then we'll go to closing statements, right, Jay? We should be wrapping this up, right?
Sure.
All right, David, I'll debunk his and then go to my final statement. You said nobody decided to watch TNA after the final deletion. I know a certain TNA hater from 2010 who was known for his TNA hatred. He kind of got back into it with, with Aces and Eights before that began with Austin Aries. His name was, a J-Dub. And he watched the Final Deletion. He's like, you know what? I'm going to watch TNA next week. They've earned that because of Final Deletion. Debunking. That's not just me doing it. So Jay did that.
All right, one
people
person started viewing TNA again. Wow, the viewership went from 3 to 4.
Can I just say that this is like you guys have done this before, where it's like, okay, we're gonna use what Jay did and what he said to help make my point. This is making me a little uncomfortable because I'm put in a situation where I have to look at it from an objective perspective and kind of take myself out of the equation and look at it from the outside looking in. So. Just going to go ahead and say that, but we have to get to our closing comments.
It was me not pandering. It was me just debunking his point that nobody watched TNA.
I get it. I get it.
It was clear pandering. I think
it's effective, but it's about time that we deliver our closing comments. So I'm going to go to you first, Justin, Wrestler of the Year.
All right. And back to, I don't remember what Evan was saying right before he, fuck it. He had more memorable matches. He had that great match at, the Great War at TNA. What was it called? TNA. Bound for Glory. How could I forget Bound for Glory? Bound for Glory. He had a great match there. His Final Deletion does count as a match, and so does Deleter Decay, and so does Team Tag Team Apocalypse. All these do count as matches, so they were more memorable than anything AJ Styles has done, and The Miz has done. Miz has done in years. Okay, more memorable than anything Miz has ever done in his career, and Broken Matt Hardy's done. You have to go with the most game-changing guy, and I think that is Broken Matt Hardy. He went from a guy we all took as a joke, like, oh, he's just Jeff's brother. He'll never be in it. Oh, he got dumped by Lita. That's hilarious. Let's go Edge. And then you go to he's eating grapes and saying, I'm going to change the business, man. And he's talking about Lita eating cheese fries while Jeff Hardy's fucking high in a diner about talking shit about CM Punk. He was like, oh, he's a renegade thing. Matt Hardy could never find his niche until 2016, where he got a little broken, had a kid, and he has a Vanguard win a Senor Benjamin, and he changed the game. He's like, Final Deletion, we're going to do something that's totally different from anything else. We're going to make people look at us, TNA. He helped the brand. He really did. More people talk about TNA at that point than they have done in a very, very long time. And it's all because of Broken Matt Hardy. You can't give the credit to Billy Corgan. You can't give the point to Dixie Carter, anybody. Matt Hardy was behind that all. He fought a kangaroo. He did all these things, and it's like all these really cool things you never thought you'd see watching a wrestling show. Then it felt commonplace. It felt real. And it's not real, but
man,
it would say real, but it felt right that we came here in 2016. We're just seeing the same standard. Everybody like someone's in the top ring talking a promo. There's an invisible line. Can't talk about anything. Let's go to my compound and fight. How about that, Jeff? I'll give you deleted and all these things he did. Like he's changed. He changed himself. He changed the character. He's changed the game. He made Vince McMahon into a cheap knockoff copy of some TNA. How does that not make your head explode and go, Matt Hardy is something special? Because he is something special. And I'm going to give the nod to AJ Styles. He's probably the best all-around wrestler. He's probably a better, actual technician than Matt Hardy. Yeah. But he's not a better character. Probably. And he's not the best special and all this stuff.
Just a little.
Just a little bit better than Matt Hardy. But you know what? Matt Hardy makes up for it in other areas. And I think that's what counts. You have to think, when you talk about Wrestler of the Year, not talking about just someone who gets in the ring and does flips and does a nice knee bar here and there. AJ Styles does more than just flips. But Matt Hardy, he's like an all-encompassing thing. Miz, he's a great heel. He's a great mid-card act. He belongs in the mid-card. He can just find his niche there. He's not going to be if he's a world championship again, I'll turn off the TV. I'm never watching it again because fuck that. We're not doing that again. And then that's just where I am. Matt Hardy, he just changed the game. He's the best thing going, and it's bedazzling to me. Bedazzling. But go ahead. That's my point.
Okay, Duke.
Okay, so I want to look at this from a couple of different perspectives because you have best character, you have best mic work, you have best wrestling ability, and there's very other ones, but those are three of the main ones. And then obviously that comes together to make the overall entertainingness of your match. Now, while AJ Styles has gotten better on the mic, his skills still aren't up there with The Miz. The Miz is a better character. The Miz is a better heel. While AJ Styles is being booked as a heel, everybody wants to cheer him, so I don't know how effective that really is into you picking onto him being a bad guy. He's more like an Eddie Guerrero that's supposed to, that if he was billed like that, may make a lot more sense where you're supposed to cheer him, even though he did dastardly things. So I think there's just a lack of like building from different areas, and not to mention, honestly, from my honest opinion, if I am tuning in to see SmackDown, if I am tuning in to see Talking Smack, I want to see The Miz. It'd be nice to see AJ Styles. And I'm not actively tuning into TNA. I never even felt a slight urge to watch TNA because of Broken Matt Hardy. So while his little videos may be stupid and kind of fun to watch, I think there's a real disconnect where there's just a lack of people who then are making that connect. And if they are making it for long term, because I think that there's just such a disconnect between these little snippets versus the whole picture.
All right, Evan, your closing comments for Wrestler of the Year.
All right, closing comments. Well, for Justin's sake, Broken Matt Hardy, man, I gotta tell you, fighting a kangaroo, putting your son in the ring, man, that's alone right there is enough to say, man, we gotta question this guy's judgment. What is even going on with Broken Matt Hardy? But anyway, the fact that we can kind of laugh more than take it seriously when it comes to Wrestler of the Year, I feel like already kind of debunks that argument. Like I said, it's like there's a hole in the boat already. And then when it comes to The Miz, yeah, is he good? Absolutely. Has he had himself a good 2016? Of course, I've been on record to say the very same thing myself. But there's a reason why he has won the Intercontinental Championship and why AJ Styles has won the WWE Championship, and that is because the butts go in the seats to see AJ Styles. That is because AJ Styles puts on the best match of the night inside of the ring. It's because AJ Styles makes his opponent better because of the fact that he is there, because of the fact that he is in the match with them. The fact of the matter is he beat John Cena, and that is not exactly something that everybody does, and in a clean fashion, and a month later wins the WWE Championship, and beating John Cena actually added another element to AJ Styles as a character who has, as you guys have mentioned, improved on the microphone in the course of 2016, made his debut, and now is a top-level star in WWE after already being a top-level star in TNA and New Japan, just showing the global outreach that is AJ Styles as the best damn wrestler in the motherfucking world.
That is it for the third and final round of this edition of Last Mark Standing. I did make a few quick notes, and I'm going to start with Justin. Very unconventional but strong argument in support of Matt Hardy being a revolutionary in the wrestling industry in 2016. I really love that line that you threw out there where you said it being stupid doesn't automatically make it bad, and you landed with that line, but then Duke hit you with one in return where he said, well, it being stupid doesn't make it best either. And in between those two extremes, there's a whole hell of a lot of room to work with there. But speaking of Duke, good on you for bringing up your belief that you had a bigger sample size to work with The Miz versus what Evan had with AJ Styles, basically saying that there's more evidence in support of The Miz for Superstar of the Year or Wrestler of the Year versus what Evan had to work with AJ. So I really like that whole point. And on the subject of The Miz, though, I do have to go back to Justin. You kept saying over and over again how The Miz doesn't belong. He shouldn't even be in contention for Wrestler of the Year. I find that answer vague and unconvincing. If you actually believe that The Miz shouldn't have been in the conversation, then you should have explained why rather than just saying that over and over again, because you thinking that The Miz is a weak pick actually strengthened Duke's case because you didn't provide a proper opposition to what he was saying. Now, with Evan and his case for AJ Styles, you already know how much I love that argument of AJ Styles and his upward mobility, beating John Cena, the biggest star in the wrestling industry, and then immediately moving to the WWE Championship picture. So a strong argument in support of your pick. Actually, strong arguments all around, but unfortunately for you all, only one person can walk away with the victory. And the winner of the third round of Last Mark Standing and the actual Last Mark Standing is Duke.
Bring in the money, baby.
That makes no sense.
Yeah, let's go ahead and call a spade in saying that when it comes to Wrestler of the Year, AJ Styles was the person to beat. And Duke, you waged this all-out assault against him. And you talked about how the feud with James Ellsworth invalidated so many of the good things that were created with AJ's feud with John Cena, and you had no qualms whatsoever about comparing The Miz directly to AJ and going point by point in all of the ways that you thought that The Miz was better and had an overall better year. So a very strong case in favor of The Miz and breaking down AJ.
He
so
won with the fucking Miz. Miz is your superstar. Are you serious,
no,
Jay?
Look,
Listen to yourself. I know you're a Miz fan.
Because just because I picked Duke to win this specific round, it does not mean that I believe that The Miz is my superstar of the year. As I said at the beginning of the show, it's not about who has the best answer. It's about who has the best argument.
Duke didn't even effectively fight him right. I knocked him down.
Miz was my fourth choice.
I knocked him down, man.
Miz was my fourth choice, Justin.
What did Miz do that was anything compared to what? How
he came in third place, bud.
He beat Vince McMahon, dude.
See, Justin, I already told you what your issue was. You didn't take The Miz seriously enough, and you just let Duke slide right on by to the.
But Evan said all I needed to say about him. I was coasting what he said. I probably shouldn't have.
Yeah, I said that, not you, though.
God, I was trying to do serious damage control.
I would have been cool if Evan would have won this with AJ Styles. But you can't tell me Miz is better than Broken Matt Hardy or AJ Styles. You can't. It's fun. Duke didn't even.
You know who just told you that?
What?
Duke told you that.
I did.
Yeah, not effectively. Not at all. Like, he didn't even talk. None of his point. It's straw man arguments. What are you doing, Jay?
Alrighty, guys, that is it for this edition of Last Mark Standing.
Legitimacy. Right there.
Justin, game over, man. Game over. You lost.
You have lost.
Alrighty, guys. Now, I do have to say, that was all just for fun. No official votes were cast. And if you would like to have your voices be heard with the 2016 PWF Empire Year-End Awards, all you have to do is head over to pwfempire.com/w's and you can make your votes right over there. Until next time, thank you all for tuning in to Last Mark Standing, and we'll catch you later. Peace.